There's a cooling system that can cool entire rooms without a compressor, without air conditioning, without refrigerants, and without electricity at all. And the crazy part is this. Most people have experienced the principle behind it thousands of times without ever really thinking about it. Because this cooling system is based on something your own body already uses: sweating. When water evaporates, heat doesn't simply disappear, it gets carried away. And exactly this principle was used for centuries, long before electric air conditioners existed. In parts of North Africa, the Middle East, India, and Spain, homes were partially cooled in exactly this way. Not with technology in the modern sense, but with fabric, clay, airflow, and physics. And the hotter and drier the air was, the better it worked. Stay with me, because today I'm going to show you how a forgotten evaporative cooling system works, why wet cloths hanging in front of open windows can genuinely lower air temperature, how two simple clay pots can dramatically cool food and living spaces, and why modern air conditioning is essentially just an industrial version of an ancient natural principle. Because what's happening here isn't magic, it's thermodynamics, and possibly one of the most underrated low-tech cooling methods ever discovered. You already know the effect. You step out of a swimming pool on a hot summer day, suddenly the wind feels cold, not because the air temperature dropped, but because water is evaporating from your skin. And evaporation requires energy. That energy is pulled from the surrounding environment. In this case, your body. That's exactly why sweating works. And it's exactly why wet surfaces can cool air. Here's what's physically happening. For water to evaporate, water molecules must break free from the liquid and enter the air as vapor. That takes energy. And that energy is drawn directly from the surroundings. More specifically, from heat. The fastest and most energetic water molecules escape the surface first. What remains are slower, lower energy molecules, and that is what causes the temperature drop. The surface cools down. It's the same reason sweat cools the body, why wind intensifies the effect, and why alcohol feels cold on your skin. Because alcohol evaporates extremely quickly, which removes heat even faster. That's why we perceive alcohol on the skin as especially cold. But back to the main point. The faster humid air is carried away, the more new evaporation can occur. And now it gets really interesting, because this exact principle is even used in massive industrial cooling systems. Cooling towers at power plants work in a surprisingly similar way at their core. Many people think those towers are producing smoke, but the white plume rising from cooling towers is usually just water vapor. The power plant uses water to absorb excess heat. That water is then distributed throughout the cooling tower, spread across enormous surface structures, and brought into contact with moving air. Some of the water evaporates, and that evaporation removes heat from the remaining water. So, in essence, a cooling tower is simply a gigantic evaporative cooler. The physics behind it are exactly the same as sweat on your skin, a wet cloth in front of a window, or a clay pot filled with wet sand, just on an industrial scale. The U.S. Department of Energy describes evaporative cooling as a natural and energy-efficient cooling method in which evaporating water can significantly reduce air temperature. And now pay attention. Before air conditioning became standard, many cultures understood something that has almost been forgotten today. You do not need to artificially create cool air. You simply need to help air get rid of heat. That's why traditionally built homes often used wet cloths, reed mats, or water-soaked fabric panels hung in front of windows and openings. As dry air moved through them, water evaporated from the material, and the air entering the room behind it became cooler, not just theoretically, measurably. Modern evaporative coolers, so-called swamp coolers, operate on essentially the exact same principle. And now we come to the part that genuinely fascinates me. The modern cooling industry has conditioned us to believe that cooling automatically means compressors, refrigerants, high electricity consumption, sealed mechanical systems. But the underlying physics have been known for a very long time. The industry simply packaged, marketed, and monetized them. And that's just why a simple wet cloth can sometimes make a surprisingly large difference. Here's the simplest version. Open a window on the shaded side of the house, not one exposed to direct sunlight. Then hang a thin cotton cloth, linen sheet, or bed sheet in front of it. The fabric should be damp, not dripping wet. Now airflow becomes important. The more dry air that passes through the wet material, the stronger the evaporative effect becomes. A fan placed behind the cloth can dramatically increase the effect because it moves more air across the damp surface. In essence, you're building a primitive evaporative cooler, and under the right conditions, evaporative cooling can significantly lower air temperature. The actual cooling performance, however, depends heavily on humidity, temperature, and airflow, which is why this doesn't work equally well everywhere. In dry heat, evaporative cooling works remarkably well. In humid heat, much less so. But why? Because humid air can absorb far less additional moisture. And when the air can no longer absorb water, when it is effectively saturated, evaporation slows dramatically. That's why evaporative coolers often perform extremely well in desert climates, but far less effectively in tropical humid regions. And now we come to the second design, because this one almost seems too simple to be real. 2 clay pots, some sand, water, a wet towel, that's it. Today the system is often called a Zier pot, or a pot-in-pot cooler, and variations of it have existed for centuries. The construction is almost absurdly simple. A small clay pot sits inside a larger one, unglazed, that's important. The gap between them is filled with wet sand. A damp cloth is placed over the top, and once again, the exact same physical principle takes over. Water slowly evaporates from the sand and the cloth. As it evaporates, heat is removed. The inner chamber cools down. Under favorable conditions, systems like this can reach temperatures up to 15 degrees Celsius, 59 degrees Fahrenheit, below the surrounding air temperature. And that's exactly why these cooling systems were traditionally used to keep vegetables, fruit, dairy products, and drinking water cool. Without electricity, without machinery, without ongoing costs. You have probably seen this effect before as well. A clay water jug that becomes slightly damp on the outside often feels surprisingly cool to the touch. It's the same mechanism. The porous surface of the clay allows moisture to slowly migrate outward. There it evaporates, and the temperature drops. Some researchers even compare systems like these to natural heat exchangers. And here's the question almost nobody asks. If this principle works so well, why does almost nobody know about it anymore? The answer is probably the same one that appears with many old low-tech solutions. They are difficult to sell. A wet cloth does not create a multi-billion-dollar industry. An air conditioner does. The global air conditioning market continues to grow every year. Billions of people pay not only for the purchase of these systems, but month after month for their operation. Electricity, maintenance, repairs, refrigerants, filters. And the hotter summers become, the stronger that dependency grows. What's remarkable is that many of the physical foundations behind modern cooling are ancient. In ancient Persia, people already used wind towers, underground water storage systems, and evaporation to cool buildings quite effectively. The so-called badgirs directed wind through tall towers and into buildings. There, the air passed across water surfaces or damp materials, lost heat through evaporation, and cooled interior spaces surprisingly efficiently. Even the famous Persian yakchals, enormous mud brick domes used for ice storage, relied on passive cooling, evaporation, and carefully engineered airflow to preserve ice in desert climates. Not with electricity, not with compressors, but with materials, shade, airflow, and thermodynamics. Isn't that fascinating? And of course, modern air conditioning is more powerful, more precise, more controllable, but it also requires electricity, compressors, refrigerants, and maintenance. The old systems mostly require just 3 things: air, water, and shade. And maybe that's the truly interesting part. Earlier cultures often didn't try to completely dominate nature. They worked with it, with airflow, with evaporation, with material properties, with shade. In many ways, they used physics directly instead of building machines designed to overpower it. And from that approach came solutions that, from a modern perspective, seem almost ridiculously simple. A wet cloth in front of a window, 2 clay pots with sand between them. It hardly sounds like technology, but that's exactly what it is, just in a form we no longer recognize as technology. 2 honest notes before you try this yourself. First, evaporative cooling increases humidity. In already humid rooms, this can become uncomfortable or even promote mold growth over time. That's why these systems work best when combined with proper ventilation and regular air exchange. Second, this is not a replacement for modern air conditioning in extreme heat, but it can make spaces noticeably more comfortable, especially at night, in dry climates, during power outages, in garden sheds, workshops, RVs, or simple buildings, without active cooling. And that is exactly where this knowledge suddenly becomes inspiring again. Because the hotter summers become, the more people begin asking whether every solution truly needs to become more energy intensive, more expensive, and more technologically complex. Or whether some answers may have existed all along, hidden inside old houses, traditional architecture, and forgotten physical principles.